the mechanisms that political parties are using to drive and manage their business. What are these things that keeps them going? What do they have in place? I don't know, to be honest. And it's probably fair to say that if I don't know about it, I can't comment about it, which I'm happy to accept. What I'd like to do though is to just show from a business perspective what are the things that ideally a political party or an organization must have in place in form of this mechanism to manage their business. Starting off, obviously, with a strategy. They have to have a solid strategy in place to make them hopefully successful. And obviously, one of their objectives will be to gain voters. But what are the other balanced scorecard things that one want to look at that makes them an effective organization? So I'm not talking about manifestos because that often appears to me like a bit of a wish list, just to please certain types of voters, not necessarily educated or uneducated voters in terms of the process. But if you look at a CEO at an organization, they are employed to actually tell potential shareholders that they perform in a certain way, and why investors should actually invest in them. Because if they don't get investments, the company can't thrive or can't progress as much as they like to. So the important job is to actually show investors through performance, of course, how they intend to change and grow the business. Normally, they've got a bit of a track record already, so they've got a baseline to work from and say, listen, this is how we've grown and improved over the last few years, a few quarters, if it's a short-term view. But if they don't do that, then investors are just simply not going to be interested. Inherently, the business must follow, a contemporary approach to drive towards success, so that they need to stay in touch with the latest trends in terms of management science. And one of those trends we can find in a diagram that I'm putting up, where managers can just briefly, as an overview, look at the four important things to do in order to drive organizational goals, be able to manage and adapt to environmental circumstances. And those things are leading. You have to direct, influence, and motivate. So the role of the executive, the CEO, and his team is critical to direct, influence, and motivate. At the same time, the organization has to rely on the rest of the employment or employee force, where you have to create, either cognitively or cognitively, new opportunities, new innovations to improve the business systems. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But those creative innovations are the things that actually drives the business, actually makes them more competitive. You have to determine activities, those things that you want to do in order to create, setting organizational goals in alignment with opportunities to improve. You, of course, have to implement those, and I think nobody will disagree with me that in the political arena, it looks a lot to be desired for implementation. So implementation is a difficult thing because it requires a certain skill set. Coming from a project and program management background, these are the things that require special skills. And yes, you have to promote your vision, you have to sell it out there, you have to build your manifesto, but you also have to implement. And I think a lot of things fall flat and through the cracks when we get to implementation. Now, if you can't implement properly, the opportunity to improve things also actually goes out with the door, because you're not going to know whether you have to improve something unless it's implemented. And we all make mistakes. So it's not about mistakes. It's about learning from those mistakes and improving upon it. You have to put systems in place to be able to monitor your implementations in order to be more secure in what you need to do in order to improve it. Now, if you don't do those things, a company is not going to last for long. It's not going to stay competitive for long. Only going to survive until the next competitor actually does that, and he does it well. Now, if you want to change strategically and transform, you need to do something. You can't just wake up one morning and it's there. You have to do roll up the sleeves and and do the hard work. So for political parties that have succeeded in this, well done. There are many that has not succeeded or have not succeeded, sorry. But to me, there's a couple of things that is essential to be done, and I'll put it up on the screen as well. Describing one's vision and mission as an integrated set of objectives and measures that can be easily understood, with exclamation on the easily understood part. Your general voter doesn't necessarily have the capacity all the time or the appetite to go too much into the depth of a political party, understanding the key thing. And legacy and emotions and all those things play a role. But ideally, one would like to understand what is the vision and what are you going to do in order to effect a proper vision and mission. You obviously want to communicate, link that strategy to all levels in your organization. And I suspect there's a lot of miscommunication going on. If you look at different political parties and their performances in various areas, the business planning component that enables the organization to integrate business and financial plans. I mean, that's probably the tough one, because political parties are not profit organizations. So financial plans are around managing the budget, managing the inflow of information, and not so much the information around financial performance, but information around voter numbers. The key thing is one has to have those things in place. Feedback and learning, very important, because you're not going to know unless you test what your customers are doing out there, and same goes for voters. What is clear though, no profitable business exists without customers, and if customers are not content, they will just simply go to other businesses. The same goes for parties. But if voters are not content with the performance of the country, where do they go? So they can move from one party to another party, but if they're not happy with how the country is run, maybe indicative of how many registered voters don't go to the polling stations, they don't vote. Maybe they can't get there. That's realistic. But sometimes, they just don't feel that there's an alternative. If you're not happy with the one party and you go to the other party, again, the same process has to go through your mind. Which party did I go to? Do I make an emotional decision to just jump from the one party to the other? Because, this leader is a charismatic leader and he says the right things, but when it gets to implementation, there's not much that's happening, which will bring you exactly back to square one. You have to look at that party's track record before you make a decision to jump from the one to the other. Now, again, as I said earlier, important is how are they professing to reach their promises and in their manifestos. If party leaders are not competent to manage the proposed changes that they sell, before obviously voters go to the voting stations, it'll only lead to disaster after election. So again, note, I'm not criticizing, I'm not mentioning any political party. I don't belong to any political party. And that makes me objective enough, I think, to comment on this.